Well, this is some more coffee grounds, possibly some juice and some old soda. This is probably the last time we're going to dump some of this in this stink water log bucket because it's about full now. So hopefully all this will ferment, in a few weeks and be done and ready to experiment with these stink water logs. I just knocked down this old jujube seedling here, probably 20 foot. And it got killed by the borer insects, borer beetles or something last year, but it came back from the roots. So hopefully it'll be fine since it was a seedling and not a grafted one. But the main tree died, and we already have one about 8 or 10 foot in the air. They're a little bit curved off there, but it's got some morning glories growing around it. But hopefully it'll bounce back pretty well. It's amazing how many blooms this Scarlet Beauty plum had. And I was so disappointed that our plum cot kind of bloomed early and this couldn't help pollinate it. And they may not even bloom at the same time anyway. So we were kind of scrambling, just like last year, to try to find another plum that would pollinate this. But I didn't realize it is semi-self-pollinating. So it'll produce more if you have another, I guess like a Japanese type plum to pollinate it. But, it should be able to produce a certain amount of fruit on its own. Obviously we have a few native plums, flatwood plums or something that we've planted a little bit away from that area. So they probably would have been a few, they were tiny, so it probably would have been, 4 or 5 years before they got enough height and blooming to try to help pollinate each other anyway. So in the long run, it might be better to get another pollinating plum if we can keep that guy happy and successful. But if not, at least it's good to know that we do not need another plum. It's not an emergency, and I do not know if it's going to produce any this year. It had probably 100 flowers on it or more, and within a week or so they all just kind of disappeared. I can see where one of my perennial sunflowers, Mexican Tithonia, pretty much died at the top, and I can see it coming back at it up at the base there. It's almost time to say goodbye to this old Baldwin pear. It's still too kind of dense and hard to just pull down, so we're going to have to probably cut it from the with a chainsaw, cut it down. Just like the jujube, we had borer insects kill this guy off last year as well, which very sucked because Baldwin pears are probably one of the best soft pears for Florida. As you can see, we have patches of those old pumpkins that did, produce up to 70 or so pound pumpkins, average about 40, still kind of surviving through the winter. There's another one right there. Dog fennel's coming up from the ground. There's more pumpkins there, and I see some greenery all throughout here, so they could sprout up anywhere. Even more violas than that was here the other day. They're just hundreds, if not thousands, all around this area. Can anybody identify what this is? I got it at a plant swap or plant meet, maybe last year or so, year and a half. And supposedly, I think the lady said they were native and they grow on the lakes and stuff. There's another pumpkin there, might have just rooted itself in that muck. But what I wanted to say about, if these guys survive in this Wetlands Zone 1 area, you can forget about planting anything here again this season. But we do have, this is only maybe 15% of our Wetlands Zone 1 area anyway, because thousands of feet of vines just smother. I think it killed all of our tea trees and probably a few other things, possibly our ferns or sword ferns and other things we planted there as well. So when are we going to plant our golden Dorset apple out? Probably soon, and we're not putting it in a raised bed or anything. We got a really well draining high area where the water just goes really fast down, when it rains or gets watered with a hose. It drains super fast. We don't want to put it in the ground too late when it's hot though. We want to give it some time to establish before, like at least before June. So probably within the next few days or week or so, we're going to plant that guy out. Probably as soon as the last potential frost ends, we'll be planting this banana passion fruit out as well. Now, what do we actually have that we could plant out now, or between now and like warm weather, or should I say the end of potential frosts and freezes? I have several fig trees. We hopefully will have some more cassava rooted if they took and didn't get too cold during the rooting process. We've got this very sad looking gardenia that hasn't really done well for us. Maybe in the ground it'll perk up and do better. Possibly a few hibiscus, possibly a galangal ginger, several of these pineapple guavas here, this sad looking Meyer lemon, papaya here. Our mycorrhizal avocado survives the winter. We got 2 grafted avocado trees, including this big giant one that we need to plant out. Again, after freezes, frosts, Illinois ever-bearing mulberry. This autumn olive here. And we have this pomelo here and the other chestnut that I just recently bought. Check out that cluster of ripe elderberries up there. We have 1 or 2 genetically different plants that seem to flower all winter long. And occasionally, I guess, they produce fruit here, despite not having, most of the plants pollinating each other. This little flatwoods plum, I believe, is in pretty sad shape too, so need to plant it out soon and see if it'll like take off or not, or just continue to wither away and die. Here's another cluster of elderberries, but they're not quite ripe yet. One of the things on my mind that I'm considering experimenting with is because oak trees, the leaves being under the canopy of an oak tree and stuff, or having like oak leaf extract, doing soil drenches and foliar sprays with that stuff helps protect, citrus from HLB or citrus greening. I guess they still can get it or will get it eventually if they don't die of some other disease beforehand, but it increases the resistance of it. But there are like 2 really closely related plants, chestnuts and beech trees. What if we planted, once we get our chestnuts established, planted citrus trees under the canopy of a chestnut tree? Would that give citrus a protection? And how long would the experiment have to be before we know? There's like no sign of citrus greening on this red navel here. It's been here probably 12 or 15 years. So it's hard to tell, but there are oak leaves all around us. Not specifically, it's not under the canopy, but it's under the canopy of camphor and pine trees, it looks like. But within probably 60 foot of it is the closest oak tree that is probably about 60 foot tall. Let's see if we can see right there. But the end of the canopy is probably only 25 or 30 foot. And of course, when the leaves drop from there, they could go way over there, way over here, or any direction. Will the future of citrus growing be with people planting them under oak trees, or planting an oak tree a year or 2 before they plant the citrus, and plant them in pairs? And I've also sort of wondered how plants that I've had bad luck with, like goji berries and blueberries, would do in these mycorrhizal beds. But what I'm thinking of in the near future, this season, is to try to experiment with peaches and nectarines, possibly a plum in the mycorrhizal bed. And this is what was sold to me originally as a black mulberry. And you can see the leaves are budding out pretty good, and I took some video, I guess, a few weeks ago where the first leaves was coming out low to the trunk here and had some, mulberries forming. And I think I really do want to replace my Baldwin pear, so when we take out the old Baldwin pear that got killed, definitely need to replace it. it took like 8 years before it fruited the first time, which sucks because I'll be, 15 years older probably before we have a really, really good production, 100 plus pears on it. But it might be worth it if if I'm still alive and healthy and living here and, able, because they are as good as, pears that you cannot grow here, like the Boss. Show you something else here. This is the first time we've had a mayhaw sucker actually bloom. It should be, I guess, technically the same age as our main tree, but it's still, a few years, coming out of the ground, suckering before it got its first bloom. I'm going to walk over to our second largest genetically different mayhaw, but it's underwater right now. But we've been waiting for years for it to bloom, and it hasn't done so yet. Just can't wait until we get pollination. It's probably like 60, 70, maybe 80 foot away from the other one. Of course, we haven't really touched on minor plants like sweet potatoes and various, longevity spinach and stuff like that. We'll hopefully cover all of those. But the major things we're thinking about, I've already kind of talked about: plums, peaches, nectarines, chestnuts, more citrus. The Jabuticaba seedlings, they're definitely not big enough to really plant out on their own. The weeds would just overtake them, even if they would be okay in the cold weather. But they need to get some significant growth, maybe 2 or 3 feet, before I would want to plant them out. I don't know how many seasons that's going to take, because they're still, only 4, 5, 6 inches, and hopefully if we can fertilize them a little bit, start to individually plant them in, individual pots, larger pots, and get some growth on them. Maybe next year if they get enough growth.